Good afternoon, and welcome to the Economic Development Project Team meeting for March 15th, 2022. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to take a look at the very first item, which is minutes. If you have any questions or concerns regarding the minutes, colleague? No? Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and file those. Our next item on the agenda is discussion of strategy, but first I'll turn it over to City Manager Washington to make an introduction.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. As I alluded to earlier during the Committee of the Whole, we're very pleased to have Deputy City Manager Kate Behrens join us this morning. She's joining us from Bellevue, where she served in the same capacity as Deputy City Manager, but also has an extensive background in economic development planning, land use, and we're just excited to have her this morning. And with your permission, I'd like to offer an opportunity to greet the committee.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Members of the Commission, I'm really pleased to be joining the Grand Rapids team. I've been on duty for about a week, and I can report in that period of time I've really been warmly welcomed by the entire community, and am learning a lot every day about the priorities of Grand Rapids and the Commission and how I can best fit in, and I'm just looking forward to being part of the team. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner, I must also extend my gratitude for Deputy City Manager Eric DeLong for his many years of dedicated service to the city. His planned retirement date is sometime in June. However, we are fortunate to have him serve in a transitional role with Ms. Behrens, and he'll continue to help in that capacity. And he continues to desire to help the city in many other ways post-retirement. So I appreciate his long service and partnership.
Very good. Thank you very much, City Manager, and welcome to the 616, Kate Behrens. Good to have you. We'll now turn to Mr. Gracia for a recommendation to prepare a regional sub-grant application for the MEDC Revitalization and Placemaking Grant Program, the RAP Grant Program.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. So as you all know, and there's been a lot of conversation about this sort of once-in-a-lifetime grant opportunity through the Michigan Economic Development, through MEDC for their Revitalization and Placemaking Grant Program. Staff has taken the lead in making sure that we provide a strategic approach to this and ensuring that we have the strongest application and with the most qualified eligible projects, and making sure we put the community, the 616 as you mentioned, in the best position to leverage these dollars in this very competitive grant program. And so we want to give you a quick overview, and we also have representatives from the right place here, Mr. Raz, to talk a little bit how we are. Our recommendation is in partnership with them, and to make sure that we both submit regional applications that, putting the strongest qualified projects at the forefront to secure the highest probability of success for those applications. So the RAP program, again, is allocating $100 million across the state to both revitalization and placemaking programs, right? And so the grants that will be awarded are in three categories as described, and in all cases our awards are limited to 50% of those eligible costs. So a match is required on all applications. So those three, the two main categories are placemaking project applications, revitalization project applications, which have a minimum and maximum grant requests, and then this regional sub-grant program, which is a coordinated application that allows multiple applications that could be placemaking and or revitalization projects to request up to $20 million. And the individual project limits still apply, but more importantly, the $500,000 minimum does not apply under the regional sub-grant. So based on this information, a lot of conversations we've had with MEDC and other regional partners, we recommend submitting a regional sub-grant application, again with those most competitive projects, based on the draft application that is available to us today. We expect the final application to be released in the coming weeks, and more specifically, submitting this regional sub-grant application for the city side for real estate rehabilitation projects only. Now, it's important to note that we want to maximize sub-grant dollars in both categories. So how we're doing that is the city has decided to pursue that, and or staff is recommending this regional sub-grant program for, again, those real estate rehabilitation projects. And then the right place would be leading that application, the regional sub-grant application for placemaking projects. So we would get 2 buckets of applications and sort of divide and conquer, if you will. And we've had that conversation both with regional partners and the MEDC on that strategy. We have not received any comments back that would deter us from doing that or that would hinder us to do so. And again, we believe that's the best path forward. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how we plan to do that with the recommendation today. So absent any reservations from Economic Development Project Team and any new information we may learn in the coming weeks from MEDC, we would, the city staff would provide a call for proposals for those folks who believe they have eligible projects in the real estate revitalization program. And so because the application is released and we know what questions they are going to require, it's a good mechanism for us to ensure that those folks that are submitting potential projects are in fact, 1, eligible, and 2, meet the priorities within their grant application and can put us in the best position for those competitive grant processes. So following this approach, we'll again put the most competitive projects in front of us, and we know that this program is going to be very, very competitive. What we also you should know is that we know that there's going to be some projects through this process that may not score well with the scoring criteria that has been put forth by the MEDC. That is their criteria. We have not we provided input, but we cannot change per se any of those that they have put to date. And so the guidelines are what they are. The application to be released, the final application. But we know that there will be some projects that seem they're passion projects. They're important, but for the program itself may not fit. But rest assured, the staff will continue to approach those projects with any traditional programs that we'd have to get those projects off the ground. So, with that said, happy to answer any questions. Again, we do have the Vice President of Senior Vice President of Community Development, Mr. Tim Mraz from The Right Place, to talk a little about their partnership from the placemaking side, and we're happy to answer any questions from the staff related to our strategy and recommendation.
Very good.
Yeah, I'll just say, well, first of all, I want to thank Tim he's spent a lot of time with some folks in the First Ward discussing the possibilities, and also Jeremiah and Jono for fielding those many inquiries. I think there's a lot of excitement about potential resources. And yet, there will be quite a few of them will be disappointed based on the criteria that's handed down. But I support this I support this move. I think that it puts us in a strong position, and I'm glad. I guess my main thing that I want to leave this meeting with is kind of where does that real estate line stop and the placemaking start, and so people are getting connected to the right group.
Yeah, so to best answer that question, I'll read from the draft application. How about that? So real estate rehabilitation projects are awarded to vacant, underutilized, blighted, or historic buildings. Mm-hmm. Public space-based infrastructure awards are for a single project in a traditional downtown and again, our public place-based making projects. So it's fairly simple to delineate these, but again, it's going to take coordination and expectation setting from both our office and The Right Place to make sure that we guide those folks in the right path based on the project they have presented, or that they are proposing, I should say.
And if I heard you correctly earlier, essentially if you'd break this out to a $20 million ask, $500,000 a project, but you said that minimum drops, so potentially we could have more projects in our regional application.
Sure. Yeah, without the minimum threshold.
Without the minimums.
Yeah, right. But again, some of those qualifying projects may have large asks, right? And so that it just kind of see how those all come in and the dollar amounts in our request. And there's a strategy to that as well, right? To making a full $20 million request may not put us in the best position as a region, so we got to understand where that may be, and that's going to be a process of reevaluating all those projects as they come in.
Very good.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
I wanted to also get clarification. I had earlier conversations with the mayor about our proposal development process. And so as we develop the proposal, what engagement will we have with community in terms of defining the types of projects that we would submit in our regional application? What I initially described was we would make the application based on strategy, comprehensive plan, corridor plans, et cetera, and then do a sub-allocation process if rewarded. But could you describe a little bit more how that engagement for ideas and interests of potential projects will occur prior to grant application submission?
Yeah, so as described in the memo, our plan is to sort of release a call for proposals. So we've been working for a few months now already, kind of compiling projects that have reached out to us about this and projects that we have been longstanding in the community, and making sure that we kind of categorize them, put them together in those programs. So through this call for proposals, we're going to have engagement with those folks, both the ones that we have today, because that's going to be the first that we kind of reach out to and say, you've inquired about this, now is the time to do this, and making sure, again, as I mentioned, we follow up with them individually to say, hey, you may not qualify, but you should understand some of the gaps you have. There are some other programs that if we can help get those filled, then we can look you through our traditional programming. So we'll have a fair amount of engagement back and forth. So that, and again, it's going to be a difficult conversation because folks are going to have some passion projects. This is really good, but there are, most importantly, the highest kind of filter we're going to have to kind of abide by is the priorities of the grant application itself. Mm-hmm. We can't change that. But we know that even after that, there are going to be some projects still there that have merit, and we're going to have to go look at some creative ways of how we support those in other ways. And, you know, there may be other programs in the future that could support them as well. So we got to look at all those things, but we'll have a fair amount of engagement with them. And they're going to know very clearly, based on the expectations we set, do you own the property? Do you have the match? Do you have all those things that they understand sort of where their gaps are and how we can fill those?
Very good. Okay. Thank you. I just want to note for the record to both Tim and Jeremiah that 15 to 20 million will suffice. And just in advance, thank you very much. Thank you.
I think Tim also, he said he'd have all the match, take care for placemaking.
Oh,
so
that's
we're
great
there.
to hear. Thank you. Thanks so much, Tim, in advance. Appreciate that. We'll move on now to item number 3, which is amended City Commission Policy 900-54 on business improvement districts and boards.
All right, good afternoon. So you may recall back in September of 2021, we came before you with a business improvement zone policy. And after some additional internal discussion, as well as some initial discussion with Uptown, we're shifting gears a little bit and bringing you an amended business improvement district policy. So what this means essentially is that we will move forward with Uptown operating as a bid and recommend any similar entities in the future will be bids as well for consistency purposes. So just kind of a reminder on background why we're even bringing this to you is that over the past couple of years, we've had some interest from corridor improvement authorities for creating an entity, special assessment district like Uptown has for maintenance purposes. And in trying to kind of give guidance on the process for doing this, I found some inconsistencies in our policy as well as bid bylaws, resolutions in comparison to the legislation. So just as a reminder, the legislation has 2 parts of the act. So it's part 1 is the business improvement district. Part 2 is the business improvement zone. So the main inconsistency that was kind of discovered was that all of the legislative references were Chapter 2 of the act, which is the business improvement zone. Additionally, Uptown, when it was created consistent with how a business improvement zone is set up. So, and that's by way of a petition as well as an election of property owners in the district. So kind of in conversation with Uptown, what we did was we worked with the attorney's office, and we did determine that Uptown could be either a bid or a biz. It's kind of in between entity, if you will, with just some minor changes to board rules as well as our policy. So just as a reminder too, the key difference between a biz and a bid is that a biz is a legal separate entity from the city. We cannot hold their funds, we don't have oversight, and they are essentially liable for the decisions that they make. Whereas a bid is not a legal separate entity from the city, and we do have oversight of their funds as well as any decision-making that they have. So the purpose of the amended policy is to correct all of those inaccurate legislative references, as well as provide clear guidance to any entities that will be seeking this process in the future. So the policy changes are in your memo, but I'll quickly walk through those. So the previous policy basically restated portions of both parts of the act, so Chapter 1 and 2. The amended policy incorporates the act by reference only, and only references Chapter 1 of the act, and basically provides supplemental information and requirements for the creation and then the administration of a bid. And basically, these are added to provide increased transparency and accountability above and beyond what's required minimally by the act. So the creation of a bid has to be initiated by a formalized group of stakeholders, so a corridor improvement authority, a business district, something like that. And then the group that is seeking the creation of a bid has to submit a bid feasibility study and an initial marketing and development plan. And the requirements for those are outlined in the policy. But I think the most important part of the bid feasibility study is that they have to show that they proactively worked with the business and property owners in the district and that they are generally in favor of the creation of a bid. So once we receive those documents, our staff would review them, and then we would request the City Commission hold a public hearing on the creation of the district. Assuming that the City Commission creates the district and the bid wants to levy special assessments, then what we would do is we would do an election. So similar to what we had done previously, but this is an add, a supplemental add to the act. So essentially we'll conduct the election of property owners, and if 60% or more of property owners that participate in the election vote yes, then we would consider that approved. And then in subsequent years, we would go through the normal special assessment process. The last kind of change that I'd say most significantly impacts what we currently do is the board appointment process. So it's clear in the legislation that Business Improvement District Board members are to be nominees of property owners or business owners in the district, which is not currently what's happening. So essentially, we've said in the policy, when you submit your initial documents, you have to outline a process for how you're going to take nominees. It doesn't change the actual appointments necessarily, so the mayor will still get one city representative that she has the choice to appoint, and then once nominees are made, they will still go through the current process of vetting through the city clerk's office, and then appointment by the mayor and confirmation by the city commission. So that part won't change, it's just kind of how we get nominees onto the board. So another thing that's kind of important to note is that the policy is related to Uptown, but it really doesn't impact what we do with them other than, like I just discussed with the board. Generally speaking, we will continue to provide oversight on their funds, provide administration to them as well, and enter into contracts on their behalf. And so with that said, we expect to bring this policy to you at your next meeting. And then also at the same meeting, we'll be bringing amended bid board, Uptown bid board bylaws for consideration as well. And that really will just correct legislative references, and then it outlines a process for board nominations moving forward. So,
Very good.
any questions?
Thank you, Jessica. No questions, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Our next item is the Economic Development Department Annual Report for calendar year 2021.
All right, switching positions here for this presentation so I can pull some stuff up for you. So before you, can you see that on your screens now? Yep, all right.
Yes.
So before you, you will see our 2021 impact report. But before I begin, I want to take a moment and thank all the economic development staff that contributed to all these numbers on this form. And it's easy to look at this and say, oh gosh, this is a nice 2-page report, but there's a lot of work, a lot of memos, public hearings, resolutions, and public noticing that go out for every single thing 3 or 4 times, 6 times over to get to where we are. And so I want to recognize the staff that are here. So if I can have them stand and be formally recognized, if you're part of the economic development staff, to please stand to be recognized. And, you know, we've had, and I'm happy to report, we also have a full staff. And so there's been a good time to staff up and we get outcomes. And so that said, I want to jump in and highlight some really important items that are on this report. So first and foremost, private investment. Last year we had $181 million of private investment, and so we're up last year, 2020, that was $179 million. So a little above, but nonetheless important, because one important piece that you'll see there in the green that was not part of 2020 but part of 2021 was our inclusion plan. And so we were intentional in 2021 to start asking contractors to solicit bids and give opportunities to minority-owned subcontractors for all that construction project. And so we're happy to report that $13.2 million of inclusion plan contracts have been committed in 2021, and you know we see that is there's a good chance that could grow in 2022 based on projects we have in the pipeline. But more importantly, we've set new expectations for the contractors and folks doing development in Grand Rapids, and we're asking them to take the opportunity to be intentional about getting those contracts and having more inclusive outcomes, and we're seeing the fruits of that. And so the $181 million, the $13.2 million are captured in 8 projects, which you see on the right middle side of the screen. But what we need to highlight out of those 8 projects, 5 of them, over half of them are projects located in neighborhoods of focus. So that is a significant contribution that we will see the fruits of for years to come. Folks building new facilities, folks putting new office buildings up, for opportunities for folks to obtain a good paying job in their community, and more importantly, our commitment through our city strategic plan of increasing investments in neighborhoods of focus. And so those projects alone, 5 out of the 8, and really it's 5 out of 7 because one of those projects we did in Walkerview, but nonetheless, we're seeing significant impact in neighborhoods of focus with those projects that we supported in 2021. Now, what's also important about those jobs and where those investments are going are the jobs and wages that the companies are committing. So you can see we had 2,400 jobs that were either retained or committed in 2021 for those projects that we supported. But more importantly, the average wage of those jobs are over $27. The average wage for those are over $27. So to reflect on 2020, that was at $22. So we've seen a significant growth in that space. I'll be honest, I gave this presentation to the West Michigan Hispanic Chamber Connecta group, and they said, well, how do we know that those folks, who are they hiring, right? How are those folks benefiting from those job opportunities? I will say what's forthcoming in our Equitable Economic Development Matrix is taking that into consideration. Our companies making some commitments to hire folks in those neighborhoods, right? And that's going to take a significant lift, and that'll be another policy that will be coming from you later this year. But last but not least, we also, we have new city taxes. You can see the impact we have there based on the projects we have. But I want to call attention to the bottom quarter, I should say, of this first page report, which is the impact of our corridor improvement authorities and business improvement district. So together, there's over $700,000 of investment from our 6 CIAs in our bid. And some folks may say, well, that's $700,000, but the reality is those are important placemaking investments and then the facade program specifically directly into businesses. And what we are seeing now is some of the CIAs are actually having so great success, they're having to come back to amend their budgets to put more money into facade programming, because that programming, and more importantly, they've also removed some barriers by removing match requirements for those facade improvement programs. So those programs that will, $8,000-$10,000 facade with no matching will, added together, make significant contributions. So as again, you can see, $346,000 in facades, $87,000 through public art, and $275,000 plus in streetscapes, with a total of over $708,000. So I think what's really important about that is those are reinvestment dollars that would otherwise not be reinvested. And that's important for the work that staff does, specifically in managing the corridor improvement authorities. It's important for them to have focus and have a plan to reinvest that money. And so they understand the impact they're doing directly. That's the best way they can give money directly back to their community and the businesses located within their corridor improvement authority areas. So moving to the second page, I think it's important to give some context to say, look, in 2021 we had a strong year, but how do we know that these companies are actually meeting these commitments that they promise you? The 2,400 jobs that they are talking about retaining and committing. So we look back 5 years, and we're happy to report that those commitments are at over 100%. So companies are saying doing what they're saying and doing what they're promising. And so we hope to see the same thing in things like the inclusion plan, right? And as I mentioned earlier, through our matrix evaluation, those expectations will be clear, and we're going to be looking at them and saying, hey, look, the successes of the last 5 to 7 years of Grand Rapids, and specifically in the economic development projects, the expectation is you're going to meet what you say, because it will be reported. And so we're in a good space now, and so now it's time to kind of up expectations for those projects. So I will pause there for any questions before I jump into the annual report video that helps capture the essence of all of these programs and puts, more importantly, people behind the projects. So happy to any questions that you may have right now. Sorry, City Manager, something I said?
Thank you, Jeremiah.
I just say this is really helpful. I love the ease of the presentation. I do think that the question that the Hispanic Chamber asked is an important one,
sure,
but we certainly have a greater chance of success of that with 5 out of the 7 being in the neighborhoods of focus. So I think that those things are working together, and eventually those things will play off each other. So I appreciate all of this information. It's very helpful. We just approved 2 more murals from our CIA last week. So
Yeah, I too am appreciative of the relative ease in reading this, but also I do want to. My hope is that we can continue to grow opportunities for public art support. If it's one thing that I admire, one of the things I admire most about what's happening in Austin, Texas, is their over-the-top commitment to in that space, and in particular, looking for ways to support the creative community. And so, I think that if we can continue down that path of finding opportunities for creatives, it just makes the city and the region all that more attractive for everybody. And so that helps to be able to know the type of investment that's being made with regards to public art support. But again, I'm encouraged and excited based on what we're seeing here on this afternoon. So thank you.
Sure. So again, what I want to do now is transition and show you this report video again to put people behind the projects, right? People that are really building these things and benefiting not only wealth generation for them as business owners, but are making a difference in development and community building in Grand Rapids. So I'm going to play this video, and you'll recognize a few faces for sure.
Everyone is clear in Grand Rapids, is really intent on, let's make sure they're here because they want to be here. And they've made us feel like we're an important part of the Grand Rapids community.
So one of the key components of the Equitable Economic Development and Mobility Strategic Plan is to make sure that we communicate the resources available to all businesses within the city of Grand Rapids.
The redevelopment of 1002 Hall Street is going to be an opportunity to create 3 units for 3 small businesses. Businesses that are going to be very necessary and helpful to sustain a neighborhood.
So the expansion for Blackbird is a really important next step. You know, it allows us to really remain in this location. We've been here for 100 years, perhaps the next 100 years. It's the next generation.
You got to take care of the companies you have, just like anyone has a business. It's more important to focus on the current customers than always chasing new. And so the successes of those types of companies that have been here 50, 75, 100 years are really important for us to be able to remain competitive and an attractive place for new businesses to come.
Spectrum Health's Center for Transformation and Innovation is quickly taking shape in downtown Grand Rapids. This is an amazingly collaborative and thoughtful process with the City of Grand Rapids. We are optimizing the advantages of the Monroe North neighborhood, the Grand River, the businesses, the neighbors, and the community to infuse innovation, inclusion, and inspiration.
I think we all have a role to play in showing the next generation what the possibilities are. I always like to say that you can't be what you don't see. So it's important that young minority children see Black architects and engineers, and doctors and lawyers, and even developers that are building up in their community. That we are people who are builders, and we don't, we should not be associated with tearing down, but we're builders and we're creators, and we have been.
It's been a real synergy between, I think, Blackbird, the company, and what we do, and the community. And it really makes you feel that we're more than just Blackbird PSG. We are Grand Rapids, we are GR in this area. And the folks, they love it here. People come here, they stay here. One employee's been here for 47 plus years, and he doesn't plan on retiring for probably another 47.
We have great partnerships, and the way we do that is making sure that we are working off the same strategy, bringing our resources together, because together we are GR. So, more importantly about, again, people behind the projects, and that will be used to tell our story over and over again. So we'll also break out of there our smaller 30-second snippets highlighting each of those companies. So we've done 3 of those last year, and we're focused on doing another 10 or 12 of those, another 9 of those this year.
Very good.
But wait, there's more.
Okay.
So we're doing the Equitable Economic Development and Mobility Strategic Plan. And so what's really important about that is the mobility component. How do you move people to the places and the jobs and be truly a mobile city, right? And so through our conversation and partnership with Mobile GR, we decided that we needed to tell our mobility story even better. And so the video that we put together here is a component of the economic development opportunities, important, as well as the mobility pilots that we're doing. And so I'm going to invite Mr. Nuramore to come up and speak a little bit about the essence of this video and how it came to light and how we will use it based on his work specifically in the statewide mobility space to attract more folks in piloting their projects in Grand Rapids.
Thanks, Mr. Gracia. You may remember last month's meeting, we presented on a whole variety of the mobility innovation pilots that we've been undertaking. And then as we were also talking about trying to continue to advance the communications component, which was the #1 priority about how we can better communicate about our services, whether it's economic development or mobility services, we collaborated also under the We Are GR umbrella to really speak a little bit more, not only to highlighting the work that's done here locally, but the audience is really national, other in the statewide. So the new Office of Future Mobility and Electrification at the statewide, they're channeling millions of dollars a year to help fund mobility innovation, startups, partnerships with different companies. I'm on one of the reviewers for applications and the pre-screening of applications. 99% of them are for Ann Arbor and Detroit. And no disservice that they're doing amazing work over on the east side of the state, but we have done a tremendous amount on this side of the state. We're trying to bring greater awareness to that. But essentially, when you have 10 minutes with a company and you have to spend 8 of the 10 minutes telling them why Grand Rapids, why are there all of these great things, and as soon as they hear about it, they're more interested. So we combined sort of our efforts under this umbrella to just try to do something that, I mean, full disclosure, it's kind of like a hype video for the city that really is trying to get a better job of being able to describe some of the story. So I'll just play it for you now. This is the first time we've played this, other than like 3 or 4 of us that have seen this, so.
Alexander Calder's sculpture, the Grand Vitesse, sits in the center of our city and the center of our flag. The Grand Vitesse, the great swiftness. That's who we are, a city of movement. From the beginning, our namesake, the Grand River, moving our native people, then wood for our furniture industry, and now our city is moving more than ever. We are a city in motion for work, play, and family. By bus, by bike, car, scooter, ride share. The mode is beside the point. It's the destination, and at every point along the way, we are wondering what's next. Because we're always striving. The first bus rapid transit system in the state? Check. The first autonomous fixed route system in Michigan? Check. What's our next first? Come be a part of it. And when we say we mean all of us. Micromobility subsidies for low-income families because we all need to get places. High-density transit access throughout each corridor of our city. Abundant parking, over 100 miles of bike lanes, bike share, ride share. But again, what's next? This Midwest Nice isn't a show. It's a call to make Grand Rapids your home, and our welcome mat is here for your ideas. Your business, your families.
Let's build something grand, something clean, something equitable, and something that moves us forward together. We are GR.
We might have to get you guys some agents. All this production taking place. All right.
That's right. So full credit where it's due. So we had a great, we used Well Design for our marketing services and marketing communications, and then a minority-owned film production firm called Avis Films to create those. And we have an ongoing contract with Avis to do more of these projects, and with Well Design on our annual contract. And this is how we're going to tell our story. So happy to answer any of the questions. If not, we can wrap up to the next item.
Thank you very much. Kurt? No? Kate, anything? No? Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, the last item is Development Center report for February of 22. Mr. Overman, there's, please.
I want to thank Jeremiah for setting the bar really high this morning. Unfortunately, I don't have any fancy videos or anything that great today, but I still got a really good report. So thank you for this opportunity to bring it to you guys today. And just want to say that February has finished with a continuing of our above average construction value as we see it over the last 10 years. So I brought $27 million to construction value in the community this month, which brings our total for the year so far up to $65 million. A couple notable highlights of projects this month. The parking ramp structure for Spectrum's North Monroe project has been reviewed and approved, and that brings a $77.4 million investment to that area. DA Blodgett is investing in a $10 million building for their social services plan or program on Dean Lake Avenue. And then Voss Glass is a phase 2 to their office development on Stall Drive, which brings another $2.1 million to that area as well. A couple operation, improvement that we want to just kind of highlight is throughout the last few months, we were able to bring on a staff member that will kind of support and improve our language access program. So Marlena Hurta has joined our team officially. She's been a temp with our department for a number of years, providing some translation services, but now we were able to bring her in-house as a city staff officially, which is so exciting for us. And she brings just a great energy and positive light to our department, which is great. But more importantly, she also brings a much-needed service to our department and has been providing Spanish translation services for our customers. So over the last 2 months already, she's provided over 100 Spanish translations and interpretations, including counter and phone services, attending some of the inspections with our inspectors to provide translation to those who might need it on site, and as well supporting our community master plan, making sure that the language accessibility is provided there as well. So with that, if there's any questions, I'll take them now.
Questions? Commissioner Report? No? All good news. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Very much appreciate it. If there are no more questions or comments, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you.